Hey guys, this is Chandler Vincent with weldingmade.com. Welcome back. We are working on the aluminum project for the month of March. Let's get right to it. So step one, understand the blueprint, understand what parts go where, how many parts you're supposed to have, and understand what parts are what. So let's get right into it. So on this project, you have two sets of butt joints. You've got parts 9 and part 7. So you've got two pairs of rectangles. One is a little shorter than the other set, and that's part 9, and then you got some longer ones, which are part number 7. And then you've got these big pieces. You got part 10 and part 3. Part 10 is the big, awkward looking piece that with the logo, and then number 3 is that part just mirrored without the logo. And so I want you guys to focus on parts 9 and 5. So look on the front view of your blueprint. You can see that parts 5 sit on top of part 9. And that makes part 5 2 3/8 in width. That changes it just slightly from being part number 6, which is 2.5 inches wide. So pay close attention. 6 and 5 are really close, but they're just a little bit different. So pay attention to that. Don't get those two mixed up. And then parts 4 and 8 are just a little bit different in width. Parts 8 is 3 inches and part 4 is 3 1/4. If you ever get confused on where these parts go, look at parts 10 and 3 for reference. So those parts have the general shape of the project, and you can take those parts and set them up to those parts and see the difference in the pieces. A couple of these are really close in size, so just pay attention and you'll be just fine. So we also have parts 2, which is these pieces that are 3 1/4 tall with the angles on each side, and those parts are mirrored. Make sure when you're tacking this project up to put the dross on the inside of the project, and that will help you locate what part goes on which side. So now that we have located the parts, make sure you have 13 pieces in this kit. You will need 13 pieces to create this project. Now we'll go into step 2, which is the cleaning process. I'm going to use a flapper wheel on a die grinder, and I'm going to use acetone to clean the parts when I'm done. You can use any chemical. Just make sure you use the proper protective equipment and make sure that that chemical is far away from your weld area when you begin to weld the project. Let's get started. Okay, now that the cleaning process is done, I want to talk with you guys real quick on why we take the time to clean these parts properly. So there's two things we're cleaning up here. One is the dross on the back side of the weld, which is oxidized from the cutting process when manufacturing these parts. That dross layer on the back side can contaminate your weld pool and make it do different things, and that's not going to help you in the learning process because your weld pool isn't going to be consistent every time. So make sure you get that dross off the backside and then clean your parts with the chemical to get any surface grease or contaminants that might be on the parts from the shipping process getting the parts to you. So make sure you clean those parts well, and let's get started on step 3, which is the tacking process. So I want to start with all the projects that are on the same plane. So we're going to tack parts 9 together and 7 together, and then we're going to go over and tack parts 10 and 2 together as well. And then once we get everything that's on the same plane tacked together flat on the table, we will transfer over to the easy tack and start tacking up all of our corner joints and go from there. Okay, now part 7. Just quick little fusion tacks. Don't worry about filler wire on those joints. They don't need to be too strong, and we'll tack over those again when the project's complete. Okay, so now we're gonna tack up parts 10 and 2. Make sure you put all the dross to the inside of the project. Now we're going to have the opposite side that's mirrored of 10 and 2. Okay, to the easy tack. We're gonna start with our 10 and 2 assembly on one side, and then we're gonna be tacking to part number 4. Make sure that joint's nice and tight and perfect. Add just a little bit of filler wire, and you want to make sure you don't melt away those edges too far, so you have something to reference when you are tacking it together. If you melt away those corners, then it's hard to reference other parts going to that corner. So just be careful when tacking those corners. So now that we have 4 tacked to the assembly with 10 and 2 with the logo, we're going to tack the other set of 10 and 2 that's mirrored to the other side of part number 4. Okay, your assembly should look something like this. So now we're going to go ahead and tack parts 6 to this assembly to close up this rectangular structure. So this is where you want to make sure you don't screw up parts 6 and 5. Part number 6 is going to be just a little bit taller. Okay, I'm just going to flip it over and do the other side. Okay, your project should look something like this. We are fully enclosed all the way around. Now we're going to go ahead and get this top piece on, which is part number 8. I think I am done with the easy tack for this project, so I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to grab part 8. Okay, now we are ready to tack on part 7 to the assembly, which is the longer set of rectangles that are tacked into a butt joint. Okay, now that parts 7 are on there, we're going to go ahead and do parts 9. So if everything's tacked up just right, this part should dang near fall right through that project, and that can make it hard to tack up. What I like to do is set the part on there kind of crooked and line up one corner. If I line up one corner and get that one corner tacked, that'll hold the part up while I line up the rest. Now that that's tacked, we can adjust it to fit everything else up without the part falling through. And I like to tack on the base plate last so I can reach underneath the project and push the parts up flush. Okay, now parts 9 are tacked onto the assembly. I'm going to finalize the top part of the assembly with part 5. That should set just right in there nice and perfect for you. Everything's tacked up right. Okay, so when I tacked that corner, the plate popped out when my tack was solidifying. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to remelt that tack and push that part in where it belongs, and then let the tack solidify. Okay, now that all those are tacked together, we're going to put it on the assembly. So as you can see, the base plate is spaced like 3/8 of an inch, 0.375 from the edge with the round corners. So I'm going to set my calipers to 0.375. You can use a tape measure or speed square, whatever you prefer. Just set my calipers on there and give her a little scratch. But the main thing is that you have the logo side of part 10 towards the radius corners on the base plate. The other side is going to be a corner joint, and that's what I want to make sure is lined up the best. Now that I have one tack on there, I'm going to set the project on its side and just make sure that corner joint's nice and lined up. Okay, when you have two pieces coming together in a butt joint, and you have like this corner joint style that mate them together, it's really a good idea to put a tack that combines all three of those pieces together, because it keeps these two pieces from warping, and it keeps all three of those pieces together, and it helps heat transfer through those pieces faster, which will help you in the heat management section of welding this project. Okay, now that we're all tacked up, I'm going to go through and make sure that all of these tacks on the corners and anything joining multiple pieces together has a nice healthy tack on it. That'll help me keep the radius contour with my corner joints when wrapping these corners. It'll also help all these parts to stay in one piece and not start warping, and it'll also help heat transfer through all of these parts evenly. So I'm going to go ahead and just go through and reinforce a couple of these tacks. I'm going to go ahead and brush all these joints real quick, clean them up, and then we'll go into step 4, which is the welding process, and we'll talk about weld sequencing. Kind of a tip, I'll give you a tip of the month here. So grab a straight edge. On a lot of these projects, you'll see people's brush marks being really nice and straight, and it helps the overall appearance of the project. And the way they do that is they just lay a straight edge on the plate and then brush it. And that leaves a nice straight brush mark. I think if you're someone just learning and you're going through a lot of these projects, I wouldn't worry about going through this process. But if you're getting more advanced and these projects are starting to look really good, and it doesn't hurt to go through this little extra step to get these really clean brush marks, and that'll really help the overall appearance of the project. All right guys, now with step 4, the welding process. Make sure you concentrate on weld sequencing. So we're gonna want to weld everything in the vertical position first, like these vertical corners and these vertical butt joints. And then we want to weld this flat butt joint that's binding the two number 9s together. And we also want to weld the vertical butt joint that's bonding parts 7 together. And then we can go with all of our horizontal joints across the center of the project. And then we can cap it all off with our corner joints that go all the way around the project, that will then tie in all of your stop and starts and make it just look like all one continuous weld bead, and that'll help the overall appearance of the project. And the reason why we worry about stop and starts with aluminum is because crater cracking is a big issue when welding aluminum. And if we can cover as much craters as possible, the less likely we are to have a crater crack. And that's the kind of stuff I want you guys to pay attention to when welding these kits. That'll help you when you get to industry. Let's get started. Okay, now that all 4 corners are welded, I'm going to weld these vertical butt joints and start with our horizontals. Okay, on parts number 9, I'm going to start towards the fillet weld and work my way towards the corner joint. I believe that I'm going to be more comfortable going in that direction. Okay, now for our horizontals. Okay, now that all of our horizontals are welded, I'm going to go ahead and weld all these horizontal corners here on the end with the vertical and horizontal. I'm going to stop here and then come from this direction, so I'm in the uphill progression, and I'm going to meet them both in the middle. I'm going to do that on both sides, and that's going to tie in every single one of our stop starts that we have made on the last welds, and that's what I want you guys to focus on. I'm going to hurry and weld this fillet weld real quick, and then we'll start going around the outside corners. Okay, now that all those are welded, I'm gonna finish it all off by welding this whole assembly to the base plate. I'm gonna start with the overhead corner joint. I'm going to just slide it off the edge of the table, keeping the base plate flat on the table, and I'm going to get down on my knees and weld that, and then I'll come up and weld the rest of the fillet welds. Okay everybody, that finishes up the month of March. I hope everybody enjoyed their projects. Probably a couple of you are wondering why I didn't explain more about the welding process. There's so much to explain, I can't do it all in one video. We are making these videos specifically for our subscribers that subscribe to weldermade.com and receive one of these projects every month. And these are designed to help them get it tacked up and teach them the basics on the cleaning of the material, getting it tacked up, and weld sequencing. We are going to start our Chalk Talk videos on YouTube, where we go in depth with the weld pool, the way it should look, and troubleshooting issues in the weld pool and with your machine. And that's where we're going in depth with certain subjects like the torch setups, the weld pool, and stuff like that, tungsten size, filler wire size. And then that's where we'll go in depth with those kind of scenarios. Right now, I just want to get my subscribers getting this project tacked up, getting the base metal cleaned properly, and getting the weld sequencing down. And then with our Chalk Talk videos, we will start going more in depth with the welding process. So thanks for coming. Those of you that got here through the QR code system and you are a Welder Made subscriber, thank you very much for being here today. I hope I was able to teach you something today. And comment below if there's anything you guys would like to see next month. We'll see you next time. Thanks.